Darlington, this is Good Morning PD on Live 95.
Welcome back to Good Morning PD Live 95. Hour number 3 takes Mondays to make Fridays. Anybody that calls today for the first time wins a free T-shirt. Our Good Morning PD Live 95 takes Mondays to make Fridays free T-shirt giveaway, brought to you by our good friends at Pepsi Cola. We certainly appreciate the support we get from Pepsi Cola of Florence. If you live in the Carolinas, why in the world would you not drink a soda or a brand of drink that resides and was founded in the Carolinas as well? It does matter. Drink Pepsi products. There's a not-so-friendly competition that has been going on for a long time. Be a Pepsi supporter. And I mean that sincerely. In the Carolinas in particular, it is a product of the Carolinas and certainly consumed by a lot of South Carolinians. We appreciate their kind of partnership. We have a fun partnership with Pepsi, and we enjoy and appreciate what they do. They're very community-minded. I mean, we talk about downtown revitalization. We talk about the economy and industry and whatnot. You and I met with Pepsi 3 or 4 times, and they're always willing to be on board to anything we're trying to do to better the community. Hence the name Community Broadcasters, True. And we certainly appreciate and respect the partnership we have with Pepsi of Florence. Dr. Neal Thigpen is with us this morning. We need a steadying hand and a steadying voice this morning. The hyperbolic statements abound. The hysteria abounds. Alec is doing a Facebook Live segment as we speak, so if you want to watch this nonsense, go to our Facebook page at Live 953. I've tried to talk as best I can about the matter relating to the bombs, whether or not it's somebody who supports the president, whether it's somebody who's trying to give the appearance that it's somebody who supports the president. We don't know that. I mean, all we know is that several explosive devices were delivered to people who have been very critical of Trump, and Trump has been very critical of them. That is a known today. Other than that, we don't know much more.
Doesn't that seem kind of obvious? I mean, that these would be the people, who have been critical of the president. I mean, would somebody connected with the president or just an ardent supporter of the president's deliberately pick out these people, leaders of the in the other political party?
Are you saying it's too obvious?
It's now that it seems to me that it is. Now, I don't go as far. I've had Republican friends yesterday say, man, I'm telling you what they're doing. That's the Democrats sending that stuff out on themselves, to make it look bad for the president and the Trumpites. I don't know. I think what we've got to do is we've got to wait to see. This could be some sort of conjured up October surprise. I mean, it could be the Russians, who want to cause disruption. And, I mean, why were the Russians for working with, supposedly, I better be careful, supposedly working with Trump and his campaign and whatever to try to help him win the election? I've always felt it wasn't because they were wild for Trump. They just wanted to cause disruption, and they knew he'd be just the man to do it.
I tend to agree with that. If the Russians were motivated for Trump to win, it wasn't about policy. It wasn't about being easy on Russia. It was about just sowing discontent within the political system.
Right, and disruption. And, if you're the Russians this time around, what do you want to do? You might want to let's let the Democrats take over the House and win some of these governorships back and all this kind of thing. And then they'll be after Trump, and the disruption will continue.
Well, let me ask you this, Dr. Thigpen. You've been around much longer than I have. When people say that never before has politics in America been this uncivil, never before have two political parties been so detached from one another and so disrespectful of one another, well, what do you say to that? I mean, you've seen a lot of politics in your day.
Well, in modern times, I would say this is pretty. There's a lot of disruption. Old Trump has broken a lot of dishes and a lot of traditions, and said some nasty things and some untrue things and one thing or another. And in a sort of a way, why people say it's so disruptive and all this kind of thing and so mean-spirited is because he's worn us out in a way. You know, that every day it's a couple of major things. But if you go back through American history, a lot of times it isn't necessarily between parties, but it's between personalities, sometimes in the same party. But, I mean, for instance, with violence and all this kind of thing, you know, look at John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry. It took place not far from where I grew up and whatever, you know, where, you know, they had to send in the Marines and whatever to get those revolutionaries, that's what they were, you know, out of that firehouse up there with a loss of life, you know. Right here, you know, who was it? Preston Brooks, a U.S. House member from South Carolina, walks over to the Senate side and takes a gutta-percha cane and almost beats a United States senator to death. But I mean, you know, we've had all kinds of stuff. These fellas in the Senate and the House, but they used to go around with pistols stuck in their belts. We had right here Pitchfork Ben Tillman and his fellow was McLaurin, who was his seatmate from South Carolina, and once been one of his toadies, but the guy got out of line, and Pitchfork Ben didn't like it, and they get on the floor of the Senate, and they're throwing punches. They had to censure both of them. So, you know, there have been times when we've had disruptive things. Now, as far as the presidency is concerned, I mean, you know, we've had presidents of the United States called all kinds of names. Andrew Jackson was a murderer. You know, when in fact he only killed one guy in a duel. You know, but the other, they had the coffin letter. It came out and said, "Oh my goodness me, he had killed 30 people or something." Well, they were guys who served in his command who committed capital crimes.
Let's go to Trump. But as much as some people find it distasteful, and some people would rather their president not behave that way, isn't that kind of why America rolled the dice with Donald Trump? They thought he would be a wrecking ball. I mean, aren't a large share of the public getting with Trump what they wanted?
Well, I think they took a chance because they didn't like Mrs. Clinton. You know, I think if he had faced Joe Biden or somebody of that sort who was more popular than she, who would have been a better hustings candidate, you know, he may not have won. There were people like me who held their nose.
But he still won. He still won the Republican primary by saying, "I'm going to be a wrecking ball if given the chance."
Oh well, there's no question about that. But that's inside a primary,
correct?
You know, it's the general election.
Is that what the Republican primary voter is looking for today? Somebody who will disrupt the man and the machine.
Well, I think what they want him to do, and I think you're going to see it in this cycle, is they want him to continue. You know, one of the things we've seen in the last few weeks, and the Kavanaugh thing had a little something to do with it, is your regular party Republicans, like me, are coming home. You know, they're not crazy about Trump, but they're coming home to the Republican Party. The Kavanaugh thing brought them back, and their general attitude is, "I ain't crazy about Trump." But, you know, you talk to people, I talk to people all over. I ask them, you know, "Are you a Trumpite?" "Yeah, I'm a Trumpite." And you get that answer from a lot of people who you wouldn't think would be for Trump. You know, bank presidents, you know,
doctors,
physicians, learned people.
So what do you attribute that popularity to? Because the media tries to tell you it's all about...
you ask him, and you'll say to him, I'll say, "Well, why?" And they say, "I'm not crazy about him, but he's accomplished right many things." They keep coming back. He's accomplished right many things. And, of course, with people like me and these others are talking about is getting the federal judges. That's one of the things. Tax cuts, although they haven't resonated with voters as much as I think a lot of Republicans felt they would. Deregulation in business, in areas of business, particularly with respect to the environment. All of these things that now a lot of these business people and whatever, they're not crazy about these tariffs, but that's kind of a local thing. It depends upon where you are in the country. They haven't been particularly good here for South Carolina. They haven't been awful, but, you get out on the Great Plains and in the Midwest and upper Midwest and whatever, they've hurt the farming industries. But my feeling is that what you've seen in the last few weeks is you've seen these regular party Republicans come back to Trump's side, at least momentarily, for this election, because by and large, they generally like overall what he's done and what he's accomplished. I think all this talk about this blue wave, it's going to be a massacre. It's going to be a tidal wave like you've never seen. The Democrats are going to roll right in and take everything over and whatever. I think that scared some Republicans, to say, maybe it's true. Let me tell you, this thing's been looking to me like more and more each day like 2016. In other words, with all these
I
Democrats,
said that earlier.
The Democrats now, they're beginning, these commentators and all are beginning to get onto it, and they're beginning to say, gee whiz, look what happened in 2016. She was going to walk away with it. Well, the talk about that the Democrats are going to walk away with it has begun to subside. And as the Republicans show more muscle and do better, particularly in the U.S. Senate races. And that Kavanaugh thing was a bad idea.
Terrible idea for the Democrats.
What they should have done, instead of, they figured it would using Dr. Ford and all this kind of thing about raping and all this business. They just should have stood up, the Democrats, one in the U.S. Senate, and gone down the line. Here's why I can't vote for Kavanaugh. And talked about abortion, talked about Roe against Wade being overturned, talked about whatever his record, and not used this other thing. And then let it figure, because it all came out the way we, in the final analysis, how it went in.
No question. Let's take a break. I want to talk midterms when we get back. We'll take a break. We'll be back after the break. I want to thank Carolina Business Equipment. CBESC.com is their website. Thank them for being our newest sponsor to Good Morning PD Live 95. We'll be back in just a minute.